We're live.
All right, so today we'll finally get some upper body stuff.
Upper body.
Although we hinted to
It's
it last
not
time.
Monday. We better not be doing chest.
It is chest.
Oh no, it's Tuesday.
I know.
Workout gods.
The good thing is that the gods extend another 24 hours.
That's good.
So if you did it yesterday, you do it today. That's like another sacrifice, like
Okay.
another pyre that you're burning to them,
Okay.
and then they're satiated. It's fine.
The fire. The
It's
pump.
just if it goes till Wednesday, then we have an issue. Then it's
Is it still
the
Monday
light
somewhere in the
zones.
world? Maybe. I don't know.
No, it's not. It's International Day of Line. We're behind.
We're
so
behind. All right.
Technically, it might be Wednesday already. Somewhere. So they're already lightning bolts there. So okay, and I think you alluded to this last time with push-ups, but so that's what we're going to go over.
Cool.
Now the good thing with push-ups is that I mean, gosh, we could probably spend like what 2 hours on
Just
all
variations.
the different push-up variations. You know, I don't want to bore anyone with all that, but we could talk about some practical ones and then go from there. Now, the great thing about push-ups is that because there's so many variations, it allows you to scale the difficulty very easily. So there's multiple ways to make them easier, and then of course there's a bunch of ways to make them more challenging. So we can start with the tried and true push-up. We'll go with that first, and then we'll go ahead and move on from there. So if you guys watched or saw the shoulder thing that we talked about, all like 5 of you, maybe saw that.
Dude, we're viral.
Yeah.
We're Springfield viral.
Right.
8 people watched it.
Yeah. So as far as grip position goes, what's going to allow you to be able to do the most or make it the easiest on you is taking a really wide grip, because you are just moving in a straight line from there. Now, the issue with that, if you, again, for all 5 of you watch the shoulder thing, if you're right here, this is the shoulder impingement. When you're right up here and always pressing like this all the time, so if you're, whether that be push-ups or bench press or whatever it is that you have to be doing, there's not as much. Basically, you have actual shoulder impingement, that supraspinatus, infraspinatus, and especially if you happen to be a little bit older and you have like a little bone spur going on there, that will almost act like a saw against that.
Yeah.
So I want you to be able to do push-ups now, but I want you to be able to do push-ups for the rest of your life. So, or bench press when we get back to that. You know, when we get back to being able to do that. So, speaking of which, nice time to key in the renting weights.
You can't rent a bench though. So.
Can't rent a
Well,
bench,
You might be able to rent a
but-
bench, but not a bench press.
Yeah,
That's a
floor
little too
press.
big.
You could
Floor
do
press,
that,
dumbbells.
yeah.
I like floor press actually. I
Yeah.
prefer floor press to dumbbell
Do
press.
you?
Or to
Nice.
bench press. Easier on the shoulders.
Yeah. So anyway, now that being said, the closer of a grip you go, the easier it's going to be on your shoulder, but the harder in general, or more challenging push-up variation that you get to do. So, all right. So there's some grip variations. Now, as far as push-ups go, game plan here is that you'll take a grip that's a little bit wider than shoulder width apart in general. So when we're doing these straight leg one, let me make sure I'm in the camera view here. So put that out of the way for a second. Okay. So when you're in that push-up position, a lot of different ways that you can start. If you're adept at doing them, then you can just get right to your grip position. And if you notice that, well, my grip's a little bit wider than shoulder width apart, but it's still right in line with the shoulders where you're gonna go. So if we go right through here, now at this point, and this is, will sometimes vary, this is just a personal thing, perhaps we'll see what Logan does here. I like to cue to squeeze the shoulder blades back together first. Now some people are like, well, I want it to be more in through anterior delt and just chest. I feel well there, that's great and fine. But as I've alluded to with looking at the different squat variations that we've done with doing those like prisoner positions, well, that's something at least that we can do for upper back. So I like to cue that. So squeeze the shoulder blades back together. You're a straight line from head to heel here. Big breath in, tighten the abs, squeeze butt, coming right down. Now you can have it to where if you touch the chest to the floor, I'm fine with that, just don't rest on the floor, ideally. Unless you're doing the hammer release.
We talk about stretch reflex too.
Right, so if we do that, you can pause at the bottom, which will take that stretch reflex out and then push up, but I'm getting a little slightly ahead of myself. So again, from here, head to straight line from head to heel here, squeeze our shoulder blades back together, big breath in, coming right down, and exhaling near the top. So if you look from the forward position, you'll get a nice view of my widow's peak too, which is great. But you'll notice that my elbow position is about roughly 45 degrees angle from the torso. Now again, that will just vary from person to person. Even that variation is still hard in the shoulders, we can narrow your grip even more. Now again, that's gonna make it more challenging, but there you go. So that's your standard push-up. Now, how can you make that easier if need be? Well, perhaps the easiest variation to go right into, at least if you're already in the down position, is kneeling push-ups. Now, when you do kneeling push-ups, you'll notice, so I get in the standard push-up position, I go do a push-up, all right, yeah, I'm not strong enough yet, then drop down to the knees. But notice that slight difference there. See how my torso comes forward more? So when you go down and do the kneeling push-up, actually walk your hands out a little bit more to be more right in line with your eyesight or gaze. Then from there, you come down and you'll notice that we're basically palm right in line with the shoulder right there. So it will make it a little bit easier or flow better, I guess you could say, having the hands a little bit more forward when you do the kneeling variation.
Similar to cue the knee to tracking the toes, the shoulder should be tracking.
Yeah, because again, that's gonna give you the best mechanical advantage for pressing. Now, if that's still a little bit too challenging, or let's say that it's just hard for you getting up and down off the floor, another variation you could do is do them up against the wall or a countertop push-up. So that's always handy.
We can do against the wall. I can angle it.
Okay. Right, we could do, I'll just do it right here. I think that, yeah, okay, perfect. So up against the wall now, what we're doing here is that we're increasing the angle here from where your feet are, or where your hands are rather. So by doing that, that makes it easier. You're taking essentially a percentage of your body weight off of the exercise. So again, the same thing as far as what you're gonna do with your grip. Just a little bit wider shoulder width apart. Now your hands will be a little bit lower because when you descend, then in that bottom position, hopefully you can see in there, that's going to be roughly in line with the shoulder and then pressing up. So that's a way that you can, there's two different ways that you can make it easier. And again, the great thing about that incline push-up or doing it like that is that you can vary it from time to time. So let's say that you're just getting started, push-ups on the wall, all right, those feel challenging, you start doing them, you do them, 2 days, 3 days, all right, those are starting to get easier, then you can move down to a countertop. And then that starts to get a little easier, then you can move down to a chair. Now, if you do this, do it up against the wall. Don't do what I'm about to do. but you do it up against the wall, but then from here you can hold on to the chair, breathing in, and then breathing out like that. And then by that point, perhaps then you'll be ready to go down to the floor.
They say up to 3 days. Are you doing this every day? Or are you doing these every other
Oh,
day?
every other day. You can do it like that, like a Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So it just kind of varies. Sometimes, well, if you look at when you first start an exercise program, and I don't want to get off too far into the weeds on this, but a lot of those adaptations are neuromuscular, meaning that, and these are fake percentages. These are just percentages to illustrate a point. So let's say that when you first start exercising, you're using maybe 40% of your muscle mass to do the work. Well, because then, let's say you do push-ups for a week, 2 weeks, now you get better at basically using more lean body mass to be able to do that lift. So you started at maybe using 40% of your available muscle mass to do the work. After say 3-4 weeks, that maybe now you're doing 65. So that's one of the ways that you're getting stronger. You're actually improving that as, well, in the bodybuilding world, they'll call it the mind-muscle connection. You want to geek out, neuromuscular adaptation. Just rolls right off the tongue. So anyway, that's the great thing about push-ups is that they work a lot of muscle mass in through the upper body, as far as the pecs go, shoulders, triceps, and then again, cueing and squeezing the shoulder blades back together. Yeah, the lats too, that will help to keep essentially the shoulders in place there. To a lesser extent, because it's a closed chain one, that the rotator cuff is doing some work. It's helping to stabilize the shoulder now. It's not as much as say what it would be on bench press variations, but that just has to do with the nature that you're not controlling an implement that you actually can hold on to something, unless you're doing ball push-up, something like
Which
that.
he does not believe in.
Which you could do. Hey, if you have access to it, I say, go ahead, knock yourself out and do that. that. So, so those are ways to make it easier, and then gradually make it harder to where then you can start doing kneeling ones. Okay, let's say that now you've done kneeling ones. Say you can bang out like 10, 15 kneeling ones. All right, now you're like, okay, I want to go out and start doing some straight leg ones now. So how can you progress that from there? Well, there's a lot of different avenues that you can go with this. One that I like to do is that if you can do, say, 3 straight leg push-ups, so if you're knocking out, say, 10, 15 kneeling ones, maybe you do 3 straight leg ones. A tactic that I like to use is where you do that. So let's say you can do 3 and maybe have 1 more rep in reserve, right? You got 1 in the tank. So you hit your 3 push-ups.
And these look clean. They look good.
Right, yes.
Maybe slowing down, but not struggling.
They're all the way down, all the way up. Okay, hit my 3. Well, here, let's say this. Okay, got my 3. Now go ahead and switch to kneeling, and then knock out anywhere between 3 and 5 more. Just to get a little extra volume on there.
Are you taking those the muscular failure?
No, I keep like 1, 2 in the tank on that,
Always.
just because, like say that's set 1.
Mm-hmm.
So set 1, if you take it to failure, maybe you hit that 3, and then maybe let's say you hit 8 on the kneeling. The next set though, probably won't be the case. Maybe you hit 2, and then you hit 4 or 5, and then maybe you only hit 1 on the straight leg push-up, and then maybe like 3 to 4. So again, that's a personal training philosophy thing. You can do that. I don't think there's anything quote unquote wrong with that. But for me, I like to be able to do sets across.
Yeah.
But again, that's a personal preference thing. That's not necessarily a hard in stone rule.
And remember that the higher the intensity, right, greater risk of injury. So by always holding 1 or 2 in reserve, you can still elicit the response you want.
Yeah.
Get stronger, build muscle, but your chance of injury does increase a little bit. Not saying that push-ups are a high risk of injury.
Yeah,
anyway.
fortunately, yeah.
They're not, but you can. It can happen. Even if you think in the terms of you're taking it to failure,
Right.
and you aren't able to slow your way down, you can at the very least, bust your face on the ground. So by keeping 1 or 2 in reserve, you get more reps, get more volume, and stay safer.
Right. So speaking of busting face into the floor, so this is another tactic that you can go. Not trying to bust your face, but but you'll get the joke here in a second. So another tactic that you can use are what are called negative push-ups in this case. So a negative is what's called the eccentric or the lowering part of the movement. Now I would never recommend, or at least I personally don't recommend doing strict negative sets on something like barbell bench press. I would not recommend that, but again, I'm getting a little off to the weeds. Push-ups are fairly decent because even you can control yourself down, you get down all the way and then go down to the knees and then push yourself back up. Not even through the knees, but even sit your hips back. So anyway, here's how a negative set or just a negative rep or so would look. And again, one tactic that you can do. So if you have a decent level of strength still at this point, you go and you can say take anywhere between 4 or 5 seconds. You can even do 3 seconds, 3 to 5 seconds. Let's go with 5. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Now let's say that I still am pretty good. I can switch to kneeling, push right up. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Switch kneeling and push up. So that's one tactic. Or you can just do it if, again, you're so taxed by that there's just no way you're able to push up. Then at that point, you could just go for the negative part and go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then kind of sit back and walk back like that, and then go straight into the push-up position again, and then slowly come down. The great news with negative work is that that's where you actually build up a lot of your strength, or can build. It's a very good part of the phase that you want to take advantage of. And that's one of the reasons why those tempo squats that we were talking about 2 weeks ago, those can be challenging because it takes advantage of that negative work. The drawback to negative work is that it is the DOMS, so delayed onset muscle soreness. That is the most likely culprit. So higher volume, and then especially a lot of eccentric contractions, eccentric work can lead to a lot of soreness. With that being said, the more often you train, then your recoverability increases, the more trained you are, and then you can do that stuff more often. So those are just some different ways. So technically, a negative push-up would be considered easier than a standard push-up, right? Because you're going down and then coming all the way up. So you're doing both phases. But if you're not quite there yet, and the wall push-ups are getting too easy, even the incline push-ups are getting too easy, you've been doing kneeling and you're like, man, I just need to do something else. Then you can try the negative work, or you can try it to where you do, say, like 3 solid straight leg ones, and then drop set it into the kneeling push-ups. So those are just a couple of different ways that you can progress.
Overall volume in a workout, how would be your recommendation for someone who's a beginner?
Someone's a beginner, I mean, I would go, because part of that too, as a beginner, is form acquisition, and you need to get some decent reps, and unless you are someone who just has really good body awareness, which, hey, yeah, there's a lot of people out there who've never lifted, or exercised before, they just have good body awareness. That's the case. I like 3 sets at 8 to 10.
Yeah.
Now, this is a personal thing. This isn't necessarily a set in stone thing. I like 8 to 10 on these on exercise like this because it helps build, again, gets you used to getting that form acquisition down, helps to get enough volume as far as developing that mind-muscle connection. And then once you get really good at them, that's when you can start decreasing the number of reps that you're doing because your form's gonna look solid. So when you first start exercising, if I have you do 10 reps, maybe 5 or 6 of them look good, right? Because it's a form acquisition thing. It's like learning how to write. Like, I don't even wanna know what my first A looked like when I was like 2 or 3 or however old you are. Well, like 2-ish. When you first start learning that, like, it looks terrible. It doesn't look like an A, it looks like squiggly lines. But
Mine still look like squiggly lines.
yeah, I guess mine does too, actually, a little bit. Anyway, we should have been doctors.
That's right.
Anyway, so yeah, you might be getting like 60% of a decent. So that's why I like 10. Again, that's not like a written rule or anything. It sounds like that's what you do as well.
Yeah, I like 8 to 10 for upper body too. I noticed I think we were a little higher reps for lower body.
Well, and then you can build up to that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, even if it's just starting with 2 or 3.
Right. Well, and truth be told, I mean, a lot of times with some people, I say push up, and that brings back like horrible memories of like gym class or something. And so maybe we start with doing like an incline variation, whether it be up against the wall or up against the countertop, and then they do like 15 of them.
Yeah.
Like, oh, those weren't so bad. And it's like, yes, there you go. And then you build your confidence and go on from there. So yeah, building confidence and building form acquisition is good.
And another thing for confidence is I actually don't imagine myself pushing myself up. I imagine pushing the world down.
There you
That
go.
makes me
Yeah.
feel very strong and empowered.
Yes, you're up on the hierarchy, just pushing that down. So, all right. So those are ways that you can, well, we start off with the tried and true one. We went to some of the basic, well, I guess you say basic or most thought of regressions as far as doing kneeling push-ups and wall push-ups. But then we got some good, handy, practical stuff about, getting into doing that straight leg push-ups. All right, now you are hitting straight leg push-ups, you're doing sets of 15. You're like, all right, it's time to make these harder. So perhaps the easiest way, especially with the kind of equipment and stuff that we have at home, the easiest way that you can do that outside of, again, and Logan mentioned this last time, spoiler alert, you can do paused reps, you can do tempo stuff. So we kind of talked a little bit about that already, and certainly we've talked about that with squats and split squats. So you can do that, and that will certainly make it harder. Again, narrowing the grip, doing close grip push-ups will make it more challenging. The reason being is that, I mean, the pecs are still working. It's that they're not at as good of an advantage to be able to do more of the lifting, so to speak. So people tend to feel it a lot more in through the triceps. Because again, it's also smaller muscle mass too. So now it's being called to do more work, and it's like, oh man, yeah. So your pecs are still working on close grip push-ups. It's just that you're gonna feel it more through the triceps. So that will certainly make it more challenging. Another way you can make it challenging is to do, so if putting on an incline, getting the hands on the incline makes it easier, then elevating the feet is gonna make them more challenging. So that's a quick, somewhat easy way, well, assuming you have access to step up somewhere.
Well, I think you use a stair. I mean,
Stair or couch. Yeah. Now, the higher the elevation on the feet, the harder it's going to be.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's, you can think of it like that. So,
assuming we're ending with handstand push-ups. So.
You can demonstrate this today. Anyway, so as far as push-up position goes, everything is going to look just like what we were doing. We get the grip a little bit wide and shoulder width apart, feet are elevated, squeeze the shoulder blades back together, big breath in, and exhale, come back. And again, you can make use of the tempo, make use of the pause, and then driving up. So, decline push-up variations are very good, definitely makes it more challenging. Again, you can scale that to that. And then again, yeah, the extreme being you go all the way up and then you're doing handstand push-ups.
Don't do those.
Which at that point is, that's
It's all delts.
all delts, yeah, delts and triceps. Yeah. Which, hey, if you can do them, great.
Yeah. No, don't try.
I don't know that I've ever actually tried one.
Actually, and truly, they do really good.
I've never been a gymnast, so.
And I don't know if you're gonna talk about extended range of motion with like doing a push-up, but like putting your hands on plates or something, because you know, this motion is very hard.
Yeah.
Right. Your head stops.
Right.
You're down into here, it gets more.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
So we got the decline, and then now, as Logan I feel like you should talk about these. I feel like I don't shut up. No, extended range of motion.
Oh, extended range of motion?
Yeah,
cool. So another thing you can do, and I think you have to be very careful here, right?
Sure.
So number one, make sure you're taking time. Like when Mike had his feet up on the step up, notice that his core position didn't change at all.
Yeah.
If your core is not up to the task, but your upper body is, you have to wait until your core is up to the task. So maintaining that core stability is really important here. Extended range of motion, just taking the motion through, like the name implies, an extended range. So what stops you when you actually get down to the push-up is the ground. So what we have to do is remove the ground, kind of.
So like dig a hole, right?
Dig a hole. You actually could dig a hole. So you could go outside, you could dig a hole where your chest is going to be, and your chest is going to keep going in. If you don't have a hole, you don't want to deal with a hole. I'm just going to use these for instance, but things that you have at home, hardback books, as long as they're on a nice stable surface, really anything that you can put your hands on, you can fit your chest through. Where are you going to use that?
I was just saying, you're going to put dumbbells on the mat. So
I like the core stability. So I think the shoulder stability. This actually throws in a little bit of shoulder stability. You get those rotator cuffs working a little bit more as well. So again, I don't necessarily recommend doing it with these kind of weights. Just again, imagine you have something stable that you can put your hands through. Everything that Mike has said here does apply, but we just go a little bit deeper. So up into that. Butt tight, gut tight, pulling my shoulder blades together, big breath in. Elbow, same position, we just go a little bit lower. Take it to the point where you're still comfortable. Take it to the point where you're not trying to force the stretch. That's really important too, because if you're feeling super stretched, I'm gonna go a little bit farther. What happens when you stretch the rubber band too tight? It snaps, right? It breaks. We don't want that. But to get more muscle recruitment, to get a little bit more bang for your buck, again, everything that we talked about the push-up here still applies. Stomach tight, butt tight, shoulders back and down. I'm driving my hands into the ground. I'm controlling that way, going a little bit deeper though. And again, I don't necessarily see a need to do these from your knees.
No, I would say that this, again, personal preference.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's a harder variation on purpose.
Yeah.
So if we're not quite ready for that, perhaps, and again, that's a personal thing.
No, absolutely.
Sounds like that might be.
Absolutely. I don't see it, because if you need to do these from the knees, you should be doing regular push-ups.
That's just a personal preference.
But
I would agree.
As far as regressing goes, this is a progression, not a regression, right? We don't want to make this necessarily easier. However, if you can bust out 10 to 15 of these without too much difficulty, your tempo work still plays. I like pausing at that bottom, especially with this kind. I mean, it's great with a regular push-up, but if you're pausing at that end of that stretch, it makes it really, really difficult. But you can also increase your feet, right? Or increase the elevation of your feet. So having your feet on a step can make this real difficult as well. Just make sure, again, this isn't a great example of tools to use. These move around, find something a little bit more stable. He joked around about digging a hole, but heck, you can absolutely dig a hole here. So this is a great variation of push-up. I don't necessarily have clients do these a lot because I'm not dealing with clients who necessarily need to. However, I myself do like these for my own workouts. So again, if you're busting out 10 to 12 regular push-ups, no problem. You're busting out 10 to 12 incline push-ups, no problem. This is a nice progression to make it that much more challenging.
And again, yeah, the pause reps at bottom. The one thing that, and I did forget to mention this earlier, but it looked like you could see it fairly well when Logan was doing those, is that in general, when you're looking at push-up position, like what's the qualifier? So with squats, we had thighs parallel, at least parallel to the floor. Push-ups, usually elbow right in line with the torso.
Yeah.
Now, if you notice on those, so rewind 15, 30 seconds, and then watch Logan do those again, his elbow goes beyond here, which is 100% fine because that's the whole purpose of it. It's getting a greater stretch through the pecs.
And again, I never felt like I was stretched too far. I never felt any pain, no discomfort. It actually felt really, really good.
Yeah.
And again, we're throwing in, with these kind of weights anyway, throwing in that little element of stability.
Right.
And at that bottom position, I'm getting a really good squeeze in my lats too.
Sure.
So getting that upper back plane and playing into it helps.
Yeah. Even if you do rounded plates like that, or dumbbells rather, if you do it on carpet, they're probably not going to move too much on you. Probably not. But if you guys remember the push-up, perfect push-up. It's essentially
have that.
So do I. They're $20 whatever place where I was right at the time. But yeah, I mean that's it. Now the other thing too, maybe you were going to do this. So is that sometimes people will complain of the wrist, about the wrist position at the push-up because you are in that extension through here. That's where the countertop is good. But again, if you have access to dumbbells or something to where you can hold on like that, your wrist position is neutral.
Yeah,
so
it's better.
From that standpoint, it'll actually feel a lot better on the wrists.
And so I think maybe it's important to talk about what my hands are doing because I don't think we really talked about it. When I'm doing a push-up, I'm not just placing my hands willy-nilly on the floor or willy-nilly on the dumbbell. I'm actually gripping, and you know the term grip and rip?
Right.
I'm gripping and I'm ripping. Yeah, right. So what I'm trying to do is I'm actually holding. Notice when my hands are on dumbbells, my wrists are actually really, really straight. I'm driving in and I'm trying to externally rotate. I do the same thing when I do regular push-up. I have my hands on the ground, I'm pushing into the floor, and I'm trying to rip the floor apart or turn my hands on plates. This helps set my shoulder into proper position, proper alignment for the actual push-up itself. So I know a lot of people complain about wrist pain when doing push-ups. A lot of that's just placement of the weight. Where's the weight placed on the hand? But the other thing that we can do to just kind of offset that is by putting your hands into the ground, trying to turn them out. They're not going to, right? We have our full weight going down onto them, but that'll set that weight where you want it on the hand, kind of right around that wrist, or right around the heel of the palm, because that heel of the palm is supported by that wrist. So again, be really mindful of what you're actually doing with your upper body. Don't just put your hands in the ground and go for it.
Right.
Set everything in the proper position.
Yeah, there's the intent and then the actual thing. So like, usually we talk about this like power exercises too. So with that, if your intent is doing that, even if it doesn't appear visually look like that, then that's just as if not more important.
Yeah,
so that the intent is there to do that. So, so those are some push-up. I mean, that's just a couple of different push-up. Again, we could spend all day talking about push-up variations. If you want to get crazy with them, you can start doing what we talk about. That power work is doing the plyo stuff where you're actually pushing up and then lifting off of the floor or the countertop, whatever it is that you're doing them. You can do that if you like, again, to train that power. I would make an argument that you can, if you have issues with wrists, then definitely don't do those because then you're lifting up and then slamming. There's no better way of saying you're really hitting the wrists into the floor and doing that. So, but that can be an option that if you do want to go that route. Honestly, I don't really particularly use those. If you want to get that in there, I would say, again, going back to the intent thing, lift explosively. You don't necessarily have to lift off of the floor.
Absolutely not. And again, just make sure what's the point. All right, I've never actually implemented them into a workout other than to look cool. Your clap push-ups, your hip tap push-ups, but not really for any functional purpose. Training power, a lot of effort, little reps, few reps, a lot of effort, fewer reps, and lots of rest. So if you're trying to train something plyometrically, you should be 3 to 5s, and then you should have a long period of rest following that. So if you're looking to increase intensity and you just want to be, I think there are other variations of push-ups that are a lot safer, a lot more controllable. You can make the movement that much more difficult.
Yeah. Now, let's say you're doing 10 extended range of motion push-ups pauses at the bottom, they're looking solid, where can you go from there? Well, this is where we're kind of stuck with the at-home stuff, right? Because we don't have that access to the equipment. So what can you do programming-wise to make that even more challenging? So what you could do at this point is I would start with 2 first. So if you looked at typical workout, well, I can't really say that, but a lot of them will have like a lower body and then an upper body, like say superset or maybe like a tricep or something like that. So you can do this to where you're doing both 2 push-up variations, supersetted. It extends the overall tension, but you start off with a harder variation and then you move into a easier variation. So let's say that you do the decline push-ups, say you knock out 6 to 8 of those, depending on what your strength level is, and then from there, you can go right to basically walk out, and then you hit your standard push-ups, straight leg push-ups, and maybe knock out 10, 12 of those. So kind of in the same vein of what we talked about earlier, where we did the 3 standard push-ups and then dropped down to kneeling and hammered some more out. It's kind of like that. So we're extending the time under tension, extending and creating more metabolic stress. Those are 2 muscle damage too. Not like the kind like a muscle belly tear, but like normal stuff that happens post-exercise. Those are the proposed components of hypertrophy. So muscle growth. So if you're wanting to do that, and because we're somewhat stuck in this situation right now, then that is definitely an option that you can do too. Is basically you're adding variations on. So a lot of times you'll see where people will start off with maybe like a close grip and then eventually go out wider. So maybe they hit like, again, 6 to 8, 6 to 8, 6 to 8. I wouldn't necessarily go that high personally, but anyway, those are just examples that you can do, again, to keep this progression train going. So.
Yeah, well, and you can play around with it too. I mean, we talked about basic hand positions, but I mean, you have other things that you can do. I mean, what are your thoughts on like diamond push-ups, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you can do it, right? I mean, if that's, I'm okay with it. I don't program them too often.
I don't either, but
you can do it. I mean, if you don't, especially if you're just, again, if you're one of those exercises that needs a lot of different variation just for a sanity standpoint, I have no problem at all. It's the same principle, right? Your grip is even more narrow, so it's going to be a little bit more challenging. What actually tends to happen is that people will flare out the elbow still, so try to keep them in tight.
And that's important, right? I like elbows tight just in general across sport for all my push-ups. I do not like them here, and that's maybe I just have
not a fan either.
My own shoulder doesn't like it, so I just don't want to put that to
Yeah, that's the same thing for me too. I mean, the right side AC joint just does not particularly care for it when I take a really wide grip. So I like the 45, and because I like that, in my own reinforcing my own bias, I teach everyone to do it like that.
So, I generally bench press too. I mean, I prefer doing it on the football bar. I prefer doing it with dumbbells, more like a neutral grip. I find that much more shoulder friendly. There are 1,000 different ways to do push-ups. I mean, really, there are squats. I find this a little bit more limited, but for whatever reason, and I don't know why that is, but for whatever reason, we could spend 3 to 4 hours probably easily on each push-up variation.
Yeah, because I mean, we don't have medicine ball. You guys watch Rocky, right? So if Rocky did them, then it must be amazing. But with that, when you're doing,
you use a
step up if you want to.
One arm up.
So one arm gets that extended range of motion, while the other one
behind the back push-ups.
You could do the Jack Palance or again Rocky.
I was watching Bruce Lee. He was doing one hand on 2 fingers.
That's something I've never nailed it. I think the best I ever did.
I could do 3. I might be able to do 2.
I don't know, maybe 1. Maybe 1. But again, I mean, if that takes, I almost think that's more of a hand strength thing than it is anything else. I don't know that like me getting really good at doing standard push-ups ever translated to doing 3. It just was like that,
and it was just something cool to do.
I'd say show off.
Yeah, be careful. It's more of a test. We test the toughness than anything else, but
right.
Toughness
or stupidity, right? One or the other there.
So just make sure again, core is always able to keep up with your chest too. So we're increasing the difficulty of the movement, and our upper body can handle it, but that core is all loosey-goosey. Make sure that core stays right in line with everything else, because that's probably the biggest thing I see is people doing push-ups, but they're super arch.
Right.
Go back to my.
Yeah. Well, I'll demonstrate as you talk it through. So if they're too hard for me, let's go with that. So I'm not really bracing through here, so they're too hard.
in the core sex, right? Or we worm it on the way up. That puts that low back in a really bad position, and we just want to make sure we mitigate that as much as possible. So if we're not able to maintain a straight core with your knees off the ground, it is okay for a while to place your knees on the ground until that core strength catches up. Remember too, the more muscles that are working, the more calories we're burning, right? So that will back to your point with pulling the shoulder blades together. You have the nice benefit of working lats and you know, lower traps, upper traps. Which is good, but we're also working more muscles, which means we're also burning more calories. And a lot of people who are exercising, ultimately their goal is to burn calories, right? So getting the core nice and engaged, squeezing everything that you have will go a long way into recruiting more muscles recruiting more calories to burn.
Right, and over a longer range of motion too. So if your push-ups are looking like, you know, basically just partials essentially, then I personally would rather you do 10 good wall push-ups or incline push-ups than do like, you know, 10 partials on the floor.
Quality over quantity, right? Quality, make sure the quality is there before you start working with the quantity. Don't let your ego dictate your training, right? That's how you end up with bad shoulders, that's how you end up with bad backs, and hey, I'm a living, breathing proof of that. So.
Especially with at-home workouts, because like no one's watching right now. So.
Film yourself. I think that's
you do that.
We talked about this I think a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
we've been more willing to. If you made it this far into the video, number one, thumbs up.
Yeah.
Number two, film yourself. Throw some stuff online, you know, or even just throw a private message to an email, Facebook. Any of the trainers will be happy to look at it for you and just give you some pointers. Because really, for me, I know I'm doing pretty much the same thing. Keep those elbows back a little bit, core a little bit tighter. Make sure you're breathing. Something we didn't really talk about is chin position. Mike had a really good chin position the entire time. You know, we want to make sure we're not looking at ourselves in the mirror on the wall. We don't want that chin up. We don't want to let the head hang either, right? So we always want to have, you know, a fist length between your chin and your collarbone at all times. Most of the time, I just tell people look between their two thumbs or look between their two index fingers, and if they can see that, generally speaking, their head's in the proper position. So those are the big things that I see with my clients. I'm doing it over and over and over and over and over again until we get what we want.
Yeah, the chicken head movement. When like going down, because like you're trying to like get down.
If you want a good time,
just keep neutral.
Get onto YouTube and look at the most push-ups, Guinness Book World Record for push-ups.
Okay.
They are the most terrible push-ups you will ever see. They're
Right.
It's like this. So it's a good time though. So have a laugh. I mean, there's like 10,000 of them, but I'll go back.
I was gonna say how long
I'd
is
rather
that video?
basically like I'd rather see him do 10 good wall push-ups
right.
than 10 poor quality floor push-ups. So anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Mike, anything else you want to say before we go?
Nope.
Rent equipment. We're hopefully going to be back to some capacity here in very short order. So just keep your ears and eyes open. Thanks, everyone.